Let me ask you something that might sound strange at first, but stay with me. What if the very space designed to cleanse and purify your body is also the space that's been quietly draining your luck? You see, in all my years studying Feng Shui, I've come across one surprising truth again and again. When something in our life feels blocked, money doesn't flow, relationships feel strained, our energy never seems to recover. It often has less to do with what we're doing and more to do with where we're doing it. Not everything begins with a thought. Some things begin with space. And the bathroom? That's one of the most underestimated energy fields in the entire home. This is not about superstition. It's about design. It's about patterns we live with every day without questioning. And today I want to show you how your bathroom, yes, your bathroom, may be holding the answer to the fortune you've been waiting to unlock. Now I know we don't often think about the bathroom beyond cleaning it, organizing it, or decorating it with a few towels and some eucalyptus. But here's the thing. In Feng Shui, the bathroom is more than a room. It's a drainage system, not just for water, but for energy. It's the one place in your home that was built specifically to flush things away. That means it holds powerful downward qi, always pulling, always releasing. And if we're not mindful of how we manage that force, it can start pulling things we never intended to lose. Our clarity, our motivation, our prosperity, even our sleep. Think about it. Have you ever had a stretch of time where no matter how hard you worked, how carefully you saved, how disciplined you were with your budget, it still felt like abundance slipped through your fingers? Like some unseen current was moving against you? Maybe you looked at your bank account and thought, I'm doing everything right. Why isn't it enough? Maybe you blamed yourself, your timing. But what if the answer isn't in your habits or your hustle? What if the real energy leak is a wet, forgotten bath mat sitting under your feet? I'm not exaggerating. I've visited homes where just one change in the bathroom's setup, something as small as relocating a trash bin or removing old paper magazines, created shifts that felt uncanny. A client once told me, all I did was start rotating my stove burners and clearing the bathroom mat more often, and 2 job offers arrived within the week. Coincidence, maybe. But in Feng Shui, space speaks before luck does, and the smallest details often carry the loudest impact. In this episode, we're going to walk together through 7 subtle bathroom mistakes that can quietly block your energy and your income. We'll look at objects you see every day, but have stopped noticing. The slippers you never replace, the tissue box that's always exposed, the cell phone you scroll through while sitting under fluorescent lights. These things don't seem like much until you understand how energy sees them. And then we'll shift into healing. I'll show you 3 beautiful, calming changes that don't require remodeling or major expense, but have the power to reawaken the space. Like how a bowl of roasted salt can neutralize what words cannot, or how a single houseplant can reclaim life force in a room designed for release, or how the angle of your bathroom mirror might be shaping your reflection in more ways than one. This isn't about making your bathroom fancy. It's about making it intentional. And here's the best part. You don't need to do everything. Just one shift applied with clarity can create a ripple, and that ripple can open the path for energy to return. Quietly, steadily, meaningfully. So if you're ready to take a closer look at the room you have always walked through but never really seen, I invite you to keep watching. Because small changes here don't just transform your bathroom. They transform how you experience your entire home. Before we step inside, I'd love to ask a simple favor. If you feel aligned with this journey, if you value thoughtful, grounded insight like this, please consider leaving a like, a share, or a gentle subscription to New Day Mindfulness. Your support helps me reach 1,000 followers and continue offering content that brings clarity and ease into more lives. And truly, your presence here helps more than you know. All right, let's go behind the door and listen to what your bathroom may be trying to tell you. Part 1. Energetic mistakes that block prosperity, damp or overused bathroom mats. Among all the household objects we overlook, the bathroom mat might be the quietest saboteur of well-being. Soft, absorbent, and easily taken for granted, it sits silently beneath our feet, day after day, week after week, so familiar we stop noticing its presence entirely. Yet in Feng Shui, every surface we step on has a voice. Every texture, every temperature, every layer between us and the earth is either supporting our energy or silently draining it. The bathroom mat is no exception. In fact, because it serves as the first point of contact between our body and the bathroom floor, it becomes a carrier of qi, for better or for worse. When that mat is perpetually damp, musty, or overly plush, it doesn't just trap water, it traps stagnation. It holds what should have been rinsed away, the emotional weight of the day, the unspoken stress washed off in the shower, the tension stored in your shoulders now fallen to the floor. Over time, the mat becomes heavy, not just physically, but energetically. And as you step on it each morning, that weight transfers back up through your feet, into your nervous system, into your day. You might find yourself feeling inexplicably groggy after a shower, or emotionally dull after brushing your teeth. These sensations are subtle, often dismissed as habit, but they accumulate. In Feng Shui, qi must move. It must circulate, evaporate, refresh. Anything that soaks and stays, whether water or worry, becomes a block in the field. A damp, forgotten mat becomes a reservoir for fatigue. It holds the moisture of yesterday and refuses to let today breathe freely. And yet, this is so easy to overlook. Most people think of a mat as purely functional, to catch water, to keep feet warm, to prevent slipping. But in truth, it is a frequency keeper, a mood setter. It either uplifts or dulls the entire rhythm of the room. I once spoke with a woman named Mai, a teacher in her early 40s, who wrote to me after a video about home energy flow. She shared that for years she had used a thick plush bath mat she purchased on sale during a winter clearance event. It was soft, practical, and large enough to cover most of her small bathroom floor, but it was also slow to dry, especially during the rainy season. She rarely washed it, maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks. Eventually, she noticed a pattern. Her mornings felt sluggish. She was constantly tired, especially after showering, and began waking up already bracing for exhaustion. Thinking it might be her diet or her sleep habits, she tried all kinds of remedies. Nothing worked. Then she remembered the video and looked down. The mat felt like a sponge of my own heaviness, she told me. That week, she switched it out for a set of thin, quick-drying mats in a light oatmeal color. She rotated them every other day, one to use, one to dry. After just 1 week, she noticed she was standing straighter. Her breathing felt easier. Within a month, her fatigue had lifted noticeably, and her daily rhythm returned to something she hadn't felt in years, light. What changed wasn't her effort. It was her interface with the space. It was the energy under her feet. From a Feng Shui perspective, the material of the mat matters. Earth element tones, soft browns, gentle beiges, warm grays, support grounding. Avoid bright reds or intense blues, which activate too much fire or water in an already yin-heavy space. Rubber-back mats may seem convenient, but they restrict breath. They prevent qi from evaporating beneath, creating a layer of hidden dampness that affects both physical hygiene and subtle vitality. Instead, opt for natural fiber blends: cotton, bamboo, linen. Choose fabrics that dry quickly, allow air to pass through, and feel gentle but not heavy. Rotate your mats every 2 to 3 days, regardless of whether they appear clean. Why? Because qi doesn't rely on sight, it responds to intention. And when you lift a mat to dry it, you are symbolically saying, I release what no longer needs to be held. That act alone can reset the energy of the entire room. Some may argue this level of care is excessive, that no one has time to change bathroom mats so often. But I would suggest this: the most powerful changes in a home rarely come from dramatic makeovers. They come from micro movements that shift the emotional agreement you have with your environment. They come from rituals that remind you you matter. Your rest matters. Your energy deserves clarity. And your body, in its simplest morning routines, deserves to step onto something that gives, not something that drags. So if you're wondering where to begin, if your home feels a little tired, if your motivation has dulled, if your luck seems out of sync, look down. Look at the mat you stand on each day. Ask it how long it's been there. Ask it what it's holding. Then thank it and let it go. Replace it with something fresh, something light, something intentional. Even better, choose 2 or 3 mats and rotate them. Let one dry in the sun while the other rests in service. Let air move between them. Let movement become part of the ritual. In Buddhist-inspired energy systems, cleansing is not just about removal, it's about invitation. When you lift the mat, you invite new qi in. When you step onto a dry, light surface, you tell the space, I am present, I am cared for, I am beginning again. And that, my friend, is how prosperity starts. Not in your paycheck, not in your planner, but in the quiet space beneath your feet. The bathroom mat may never ask for attention, but once you give it your care, it gives you something back. Clarity, movement, and the simple feeling of not being weighed down. 2. Unclean or forgotten bathroom slippers. Among the quietest companions in your home, your bathroom slippers say more than you realize. These are the objects that touch your energy directly, morning after morning, evening after long evening, absorbing the rhythm of your walk, the weight of your fatigue, the moisture of your routines. In Feng Shui, what we wear on our feet reflects where we're willing to go and how we choose to carry ourselves along the way. Slippers, in particular, hold the imprint of daily energy, sometimes gentle, sometimes heavy, sometimes altogether forgotten. And when they are left unwashed, damp from yesterday's shower, or softened by overuse, they no longer support your ki. They begin to reinforce its stagnation. You may not notice it at first. Maybe the rubber sole is peeling just slightly, or the cotton inside feels a little too compressed. Maybe they live close to the toilet, too close, in fact, just tucked behind the lid, where steam rises and water splashes and airborne particles make their invisible mark. But slowly, imperceptibly, those slippers stop inviting movement. They begin to accumulate residue, not just physical, but energetic. And in time, each step you take in them, across tile, toward the mirror, out the door, feels a little heavier, a little slower, as if your body is still in dialogue with everything it has been too tired to release. You see, the bathroom in Feng Shui is already a sensitive field. It is the space of elimination, the place where the body lets go of what it no longer needs. And the objects that live there, slippers included, must be carefully selected to honor that role. When slippers stay too long in that environment without breath, without cleansing, without care, they start to echo the very things you're trying to let go of. Emotional residue, repetitive worry, cycles of financial depletion or indecision. And the tragic part is, you may not even know it's happening. You'll think it's just fatigue, just stress, just the weather. But part of your energy is being absorbed and recycled through the very tools meant to help you transition from one state to another. Bathroom slippers, though small, are transition objects. They carry you between cleanliness and readiness, between privacy and return. And when they are fresh, breathable, well cared for, they remind the body that movement is safe, that letting go doesn't mean losing direction. It means finding footing again. There's a viewer from Manila I remember who once sent me a note after watching a segment on bedroom energy. She had never considered how her slippers factored into her daily mood. They were 10 years old, she wrote, soft, reliable, but always a little damp. I didn't realize how much they weighed on me until I bought a new pair. Woven grass, light as air. The first night I used them, I slept better. I don't know why, I just felt like I wasn't carrying old energy back to bed. That's the point. Sometimes change isn't dramatic. Sometimes it happens underfoot. The body registers it before the mind does. The nervous system exhales before the intellect catches up. And it begins often with what we think is trivial. So what makes a good Feng Shui aligned bathroom slipper? First, the material. Natural fibers are key. Bamboo, woven straw, cotton blends. These allow air to circulate, water to evaporate, qi to breathe. Plastic, rubber, or synthetic foam may seem convenient, but they trap more than just sweat. They hold on to dampness in the energetic field, which leads to a sense of dullness in movement. Next is location. Always store slippers away from the toilet, not just physically, but symbolically. The toilet is where things exit the body and the space. Keeping your slippers too close means re-inviting that releasing energy back into your personal field. Instead, place them in a corner, ideally next to a small wooden mat or beside a calming element, like a plant or a low-light source. This anchors their role in transition, not in waste. And finally, the ritual. Set a rhythm for when you clean or replace them. Weekly, if possible. Every Sunday evening, perhaps. Rinse them if they're washable. Dry them in sunlight if weather allows. And when they've reached the end of their life cycle, when the soul is worn through, when they no longer make you feel light, let them go with gratitude. Wrap them. Thank them. Discard them with intention. In Feng Shui, release is as important as placement. You can even go one step further and treat the slipper change as a personal reset ritual. Light a stick of incense before bed. Take your old slippers, hold them in both hands, and mentally release what they've carried for you. Stress, confusion, emotional debris. Place them by the door. Welcome the new pair with silent appreciation. These aren't just objects. They're extensions of your movement. They guide the way energy enters and exits your most private space. And that matters more than most of us ever realize. One of the most overlooked effects of poorly maintained slippers is how they dull your sense of agency. If you've ever walked into a bathroom and felt emotionally foggy, even if everything is clean, look down. Look at what touches the soles of your feet. The body is an intelligent field. It gathers cues from its surroundings constantly, often unconsciously. It knows when it is stepping onto something that honors release and when it is stepping into a field of inertia. Bathroom slippers, though humble, are like tuning forks for that field. Treat them as such. So today, if you do nothing else, do this. Check your slippers. Feel their weight. Smell them. Press your hand inside. Ask yourself if they still support the version of you are trying to grow into. If the answer is no, or if they've simply been forgotten, begin again. Choose a pair that breathes, that lightens, that whispers, it's okay to walk forward now. Your home will respond, not in fireworks, but in small, cumulative shifts, in mornings that feel more energized, in thoughts that feel clearer, in habits that feel less resistant. That's how energy moves, not in spectacle, but in subtle, repeated choices. 3. Overexposed paper items, toilet paper, tissue boxes, etc. In the language of Feng Shui, everything in your home either holds energy or leaks it. And the most ordinary things, the ones we barely notice, often carry the loudest energy signatures. This is especially true in the bathroom, a space already charged with symbolism. It is where things are released, where the body purges, detoxifies, resets. In every traditional school of Feng Shui, the bathroom is considered a zone of downward qi. It is not inherently bad, but it is inherently leaky, designed to remove what is no longer needed. Water exits, heat exits, waste exits. And if we're not careful, luck exits with it. That's why this space requires not just hygiene, but containment. Within this zone, few items are as overlooked and yet as energetically significant as paper products. Toilet paper, tissue boxes, paper towels, things that dry, absorb, discard. We treat them as disposable. But in Feng Shui, even the disposable holds frequency, especially when it is made to absorb. Paper as a material is porous. It draws in water, but it also holds vibration. In homes where energy already drains downward, whether emotionally, financially, or physically, exposed paper products act like energetic sponges. They pull in humidity, yes, but they also pull in the residue of thought forms, stagnant feelings, and low-frequency qi that tends to gather in transitional spaces. In bathrooms where qi tends to circulate unevenly, an exposed roll of toilet paper placed directly across from a toilet becomes more than a utility. It becomes a silent receiver of waste qi, not just in a literal sense, but symbolically. In traditional Feng Shui, placement speaks louder than design. What faces the toilet becomes what receives its message. This is not superstition. It is pattern recognition. Over time, this constant symbolic imprint on an object of absorption can contribute to an unconscious association with depletion. The result? The space feels weaker, the energy less contained, And the person who uses the space, especially first thing in the morning or last thing at night, begins to absorb that weakness as ambient normalcy. The same principle applies to tissue boxes placed on the back of the toilet, next to the sink or directly across from mirrors. In Feng Shui, mirrors double whatever they reflect. A tissue box in front of a mirror reflects lack, sickness, or waste twice. Even though it seems minor, repeated daily exposure to such visuals reinforces subtle frequencies. You may not consciously register it, but the brain and the energetic body absorb it. It is part of the silent language your space speaks to you. Every time you wash your face or brush your teeth, your eyes catch sight of something meant to mop up tears, clean up messes, or manage waste. And slowly that becomes part of the background field, one that subtly reinforces neediness, fragility, or anxiety. The fix is not to remove paper products from the bathroom entirely. That would be impractical. The goal instead is to protect them, to shield them not out of shame or fear, but out of respect for containment. In traditional households that follow earth-based practices, whether in Asia, Europe, or the Americas, items that carry discharge energy are often stored out of sight. This is not secrecy, it is energy management. Begin with toilet paper. Avoid leaving it exposed, especially in open holders facing the toilet or sink. Use a covered toilet paper holder if possible, ideally one made of wood, ceramic, or matte metal rather than clear plastic. Wood supports the earth element and balances the water-heavy nature of bathrooms. If a cover isn't feasible, place the roll in a discreet corner or behind a modest screen. Closed baskets, small cabinets, or even cloth pouches can house spare rolls without leaving them energetically bare. For tissue boxes, seek closed dispensers or bamboo covers, especially if they are placed in visible areas. Avoid glossy plastic containers in garish colors. Choose soft materials and neutral tones that harmonize with the surrounding elements. If the tissue must remain exposed, tuck it into a tray with other high-vibration items, like a small plant, essential oil bottle, or ceramic bowl filled with pebbles or dried flowers. This rebalances the composition, ensuring that the tissue does not carry the energetic story of lack or mess alone. Avoid placing paper products on top of the toilet tank. This area represents the topmost point of water flow, a capstone of pressure and movement. Items placed here inherit that instability. Instead, use shelving above the toilet that is closed or shielded. If you must store paper in open view, consider small drawers, boxes, or baskets made of breathable materials like rattan, bamboo, or untreated wood. These maintain function without amplifying symbolic leakage. Another key point, keep paper away from direct steam. When stored too close to the shower or bath, paper products begin to absorb humidity long before you use them. Not only does this reduce their physical integrity, it also charges them energetically with excess yin moisture. In Feng Shui, overmoisture can contribute to emotional heaviness, slow thinking, and fatigue. Place your paper items away from steam lines. If needed, store backup supplies outside the bathroom entirely, in hallway cabinets or bedroom closets where energy is more stable and less transitional. Finally, refresh your paper items regularly. Even unused tissue that's been sitting out for months gathers stagnant energy. Rotate it, replace it, thank it even. This isn't about woo-woo rituals. It's about treating everything in your home as an energy object. Because it is. In the end, the goal is simple. Everything in your home should support your vitality, not drain it. When something as mundane as a tissue box is treated with intention, your space begins to change its tone. And when the space changes, so does the mind that lives within it. Feng Shui isn't about avoiding bad luck. It's about removing energetic noise, so the good can flow naturally. Bringing in your phone or devices. We live in a world where silence is increasingly rare. Moments that used to be empty, waiting rooms, grocery lines, quiet mornings, are now filled with the tap of fingers, the buzz of screens, the steady hum of distraction. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the bathroom, a space once reserved for privacy and pause. Today, for many, it has become just another scrolling station. You sit, you wash, you brush your teeth, with one eye on the screen, one hand checking messages, one mind always elsewhere. But in Feng Shui, where space is understood not merely as function but as field, this habit carries more weight than we think. The bathroom by nature is a yin space. It is designed for letting go, for releasing, cleansing, resetting. And the phone, by contrast, is an intensifier. Its electromagnetic frequency, its flood of visual data, its constant feed of messages and motion, these are all expressions of amplified yang. When we bring that yang into a room meant to quiet the body systems, the result is subtle discord. This isn't about rules or guilt, it's about vibration. In classical Feng Shui, each room has a signature element, an energetic rhythm. The bedroom supports yin restoration. The kitchen cultivates yang nourishment. The bathroom, often governed by the water element, is a zone of downward and dissolving energy. It governs release, not only of physical waste, but of psychic noise. It is where we exhale the residue of the day, where we drop the roles we play in public, where we face the mirror not for appearance, but for reset. Bringing a phone into that environment introduces more than just technology. It introduces a foreign current into an already delicate circuit. The effect isn't an immediate, but it is cumulative. Over time, the bathroom becomes less a space of energetic pause and more a space of leak, where clarity is constantly interrupted, where the mind never fully arrives, where even the silence becomes noise. From a Feng Shui standpoint, the phone carries its own field. Its electromagnetic signature does not cease when we pocket it or set it on the counter. It continues to pulse, vibrate, emit. And this energy, though subtle, is disruptive to water-based spaces. Water in Feng Shui is associated with emotion, intuition, depth. It is yin in nature, responsive rather than directive. When exposed to high frequencies, water becomes turbulent. It loses its natural rhythm. The same is true of the bathroom. With every scroll, every notification, the space loses some of its absorptive capacity. Instead of cleansing us, it begins to store our attention. There's also the visual component. The phone screen doesn't just emit light, it emits information. A news headline, an argument, a to-do list, a photo of someone else's life. These may seem like minor exposures, but when absorbed in a room meant for release, they become energetic contradictions. We ask our bodies to relax while our minds ingest stimulation. We expect clarity while consuming chaos. Over time, the effect is not just mental fatigue, it is a distortion in the spatial memory of the room itself. The bathroom, once neutral, begins to hold the residue of constant mental engagement. It becomes harder to feel peace, harder to think clearly, harder to sleep after late-night routines. Not because of what the bathroom is, but because of what we've turned it into. The solution is not radical, it is subtle. Start by simply leaving the phone in the hallway, not forever, just during the moments that used to belong to stillness. Brush your teeth with nothing to watch, sit without the scroll. Let your eyes wander to the tiles, let your mind return to the breath. Not as a practice, but as a return. Reclaim the micro moments, the ones that used to be filled with daydreaming or nothing at all. Because in Feng Shui, the quality of qi is not determined with action. It is shaped by awareness. When a space is used with intention, it holds its shape. It becomes a vessel again, not a drain. There's a reason that ancient bathhouses, temples, and onsens were considered sacred. It wasn't just the heat or the architecture, it was the pause, the absence of noise, the understanding that when the body is in release, the spirit requires rest. Today, we forget this not because we are lazy, but because we are overstimulated. We've been trained to fill every silence with input, but silence is not emptiness. It is presence, and presence is where alignment begins. If it feels too difficult to leave the phone outside, try this. Create a visual cue. Place a small bowl by the bathroom entrance. Let it be the phone's resting place, not as punishment, but as permission to enter a different state. Or turn your phone off completely for 5 minutes. Let the battery rest. Let your mind wander without guidance. Or replace the screen with something softer. A plant by the mirror, a small piece of art, a candle, something that reflects back calm rather than reaction. Feng Shui is not about fixing, it's about feeling. It asks, how does your space make you feel when no one is watching, When there's no app open, no sound playing, no input arriving? If the answer is restless, then maybe the room isn't what needs adjusting. Maybe it's the habit, the device, the loop. Bathrooms, when honored, become sanctuaries. Not because they're glamorous, but because they hold the most primal of functions, to let go. And when we allow them to do that without interference, we begin to recover something rare. A moment of emptiness, a glimpse of clarity, a breath that isn't borrowed. Let the phone wait. Let the room return to stillness. Let the body have one place, just one, where nothing needs to be known, seen, or shared. And in that pause, something ancient stirs. The knowing that silence isn't absence. It is space, it is strength, and it is yours to keep if you'll let it. 5. Books, magazines, and reading materials. There's a quiet truth in Feng Shui that we rarely speak aloud. Not all knowledge belongs in every room. We live in a world that treasures input, that equates presence with productivity, and considers every empty surface an opportunity to fill, with advice, with articles, with something to read. But when we carry that impulse into the bathroom, the result is not stimulation, it is stagnation. Because the bathroom is not a library, it is not a study, it is not a chamber for information. It is a chamber for release, a place designed for letting go of waste, of tension, of energy. And what we introduce into this space must support that rhythm or risk interfering with it. In Feng Shui, every object you place becomes part of the room's intention. A magazine is not neutral. It carries text, ink, memory, ideas frozen in paper, thoughts bound in form. These things are energetic sponges. Even before you open them, they hold the residue of the minds that wrote them. The pages absorb not just moisture, but the emotional tone of the room they inhabit. And in a space defined by elimination, what those pages are soaking up is not knowledge, it is residue, low vibration, dense, damp qi. What is released by the body during physical function is mirrored energetically by what the room then retains. So when books are stored here, on the back of the toilet, tucked into baskets, resting beside the sink, they begin to carry a frequency far from what they were intended to hold. In the living room, books inspire conversation. In the bedroom, they guide introspection. In the study, they become catalysts for learning. But in the bathroom, they become unconscious repositories for unresolved energy. You may think you're just reading an article while brushing your teeth or flipping through pages on the toilet, but energetically, something else is happening. You are feeding your mind in a place designed for emptying. You are inviting information into a zone of transition, and over time, the result is not wisdom, but confusion. The mind never fully rests, the space never fully resets, and the energetic purpose of the room is diluted by competing signals. It's not that books are banned, it's that context matters. Just as we wouldn't plant delicate flowers in a drainage ditch, we must be mindful of where we place intellectual tools. They deserve clean qi, dry air, reverent attention, none of which exist in the bathroom, no matter how well ventilated or well lit. Instead, replace them with something that supports the room's elemental flow. A single framed quote, not to inform, but to center. A dried bundle of eucalyptus, not to distract, but to cleanse. A stone bowl, a ceramic dish, a feather in a glass case. Silent symbols of beauty that ask nothing, absorb nothing, and subtly remind the room what it's for. There's another layer to this that few consider. When we fill the bathroom with reading material, we reinforce a cultural narrative that even in our most private moments, we must stay engaged, must consume, must multitask, must be productive. But this belief is rooted in imbalance. The belief that silence is a void to be filled, rather than a portal to be entered. That stillness is wasted time, rather than sacred rhythm. And Feng Shui reminds us, space is never empty. It is full of potential, but only if we let it breathe. The moment you remove books and magazines from your bathroom, to the moment the room begins to soften, the visual clutter lifts. The corners feel lighter. The air somehow holds more clarity. You don't need to add anything elaborate in their place. In fact, the less you add, the more the room returns to balance. Bathrooms don't need stimulation. They need permission to be what they are. to support the body's cycles without interference, to hold your release without reflecting it back. You may wonder, isn't reading in the bathroom harmless? Isn't it just habit? Yes, it's habit, but habits carry energy, and the most invisible ones are often the most disruptive. The casual pile of magazines on the floor, the book you've been meaning to finish resting against a scented candle. These may seem like nothing, but in the language of space, they are messages. And what they whisper is, even here you must think, you must plan, you must engage. But the body in these moments wants none of that. It wants to exhale, to surrender, to reset. Give it that chance. Remove the words. Let the bathroom become a sanctuary of quiet form. Let the mirror reflect stillness, not stimulation. Let the walls hold steam, not opinion. Let the air move without commentary. In Feng Shui, the most powerful corrections are often the subtlest. Not what you add, but what you remove. And what you remove becomes what you invite. Invite simplicity. Invite release. Invite the possibility that even 5 minutes without reading can become 5 minutes of recovery for the nervous system, for the mind, for the qi that supports your next step. Let the stories live where they belong, in spaces built for expansion. Let the bathroom return to its role, not as a page, but as a pause. And in that pause, you may hear something softer than words. The sound of energy realigning. The echo of presence returning. The quiet shift from input to ease. And maybe without ever needing to say it, you'll begin to feel something different every time you enter the room. The space will feel clearer, and you will too. Serum, aggressive cleaning chemicals with harsh scent. Every room in a home has a scent, not just the one you smell, but the one you feel. The one that lingers on the edge of awareness. The trace of what the room has witnessed, absorbed, released. In Feng Shui, we often speak of shape and direction, of placement and material, but we also speak of fragrance, because qi is not only visual, it is atmospheric, and what saturates the air becomes what the body reads. This is especially true in the bathroom, a space governed by water and by quiet movement. Its energy is already transitional. Things enter, things leave, and the room ideally stays neutral. But when we overwhelm that neutrality with aggressive chemical cleaners, especially those with synthetic or abrasive scents, we shift the frequency of the entire room. And that shift, though invisible, speaks loudly. Walk into a bathroom cleaned with bleach or commercial disinfectants, and you'll notice it immediately. Not just the sting in the nose or throat, but a kind of sharpness in the air, a dominance, a sterility that feels more clinical than comforting. This is not the clean that supports healing. It is the clean that erases. And in a room designed to support gentle, necessary release, that kind of domination sends mixed messages. Yes, it removes bacteria. Yes, it kills germs. But it also stifles qi. It flattens the subtle life of the space. In Feng Shui, this is not a minor detail. A room that smells aggressive will hold aggressive energy. It will not invite you in. It will not help you relax. It will ask you to hurry through, to leave quickly, to feel slightly on edge. And over time, that becomes part of your body's association with that space. We've been trained to equate clean with harsh. The stronger the smell, the better the job must have been. But in truth, strong chemical odors don't just signal cleanliness. They leave behind energetic residue of their own. The scent of synthetic pine or lemon doesn't smell like a forest. It smells like control, like artificial power, like something imposed rather than welcomed. That scent, especially in a small enclosed space, continues to off-gas into the air long after cleaning is complete. And while it may smell fresh for an hour, its energetic impact lingers much longer, often tightening the field of the room, compressing qi, and dulling the natural responsiveness of space to intention. What Feng Shui teaches us is that scent, like sound or color, must harmonize with the function of the room. And the bathroom is not a battlefield. It is not a surgical zone. It is a passage, a place of return. So we must clean it, yes, but we must clean it with awareness, with tools that support not just sanitation, but softness. This does not mean using ineffective materials or ignoring hygiene. It means redefining what clean means. not as annihilation, but as restoration. And that begins with what you choose to spray, soak, or scrub with. Instead of bleach-based sprays, choose natural salt soaks. Sea salt, baking soda, or borax mixed with water and lemon not only break down residue, they purify. Salt, in energetic terms, neutralizes excess. It does not dominate. It draws out what does not belong and absorbs what must be held temporarily. A simple soak around the drain using warm water, a few drops of essential oil, like eucalyptus or lavender, and mineral salt can clean deeply without trauma. It leaves the space feeling lifted, not overpowered. For daily surface cleaning, citrus-based cleaners offer a vibrant alternative. Lemon and orange peels carry the energy of clarity and forward movement. Their scent is bright but not piercing. It clears without invading. A cleaner made with white vinegar, orange rind, and a few sprigs of rosemary left to steep for a week in a glass jar becomes a solution that cuts grease and residue while refreshing the air with a frequency that says, "This space is cared for," not "this space was under attack." Even the simple act of cleaning corners and drains with intention shifts the energetic tone. In Feng Shui, corners are considered places where qi can stagnate. They hold what is forgotten, overlooked, avoided. And drains are exit points, energetic gateways through which energy and wealth and emotion can disappear too quickly if left unchecked. When you scrub these places with harsh cleaners, the energy jolts. But when you clean them with a solution infused with clarity and care, the qi settles. It moves, but it doesn't flee. It transforms. Scented bleach sprays, aerosol disinfectants, and commercial toilet bowl cleaners may seem convenient, but they also strip, not just bacteria, but personality, warmth, subtle life. They leave the bathroom feeling like a holding cell. And when we treat this space as purely functional, we forget its role in our well-being. The bathroom is the first place many of us see ourselves in the morning. The last place we go before sleep. It is a container for transition, for re-entry, for repair. And every substance we use within it becomes part of that process. There is also the matter of respiratory health. Harsh chemical scents may clear mildew, but they also dry the air. They irritate the lungs. They amplify sensitivity in those already anxious or fatigued. The body begins to brace itself upon entering the space, not relax. This is not just biological, it is energetic. The frequency of the cleaner becomes part of the field, and the field, in turn, becomes the message. To restore balance, choose silence and scent. Choose cleansers whose fragrance fades naturally rather than clings. Choose ingredients that come from the earth. Baking soda, lemon, vinegar, essential oils, salt. Not because they are trendy, but because they are energetically compatible with the element of water. Water doesn't like being pushed. It likes being allowed. After you clean, open a window, light a candle, let the space breathe. Let it recalibrate. Bathrooms are often the smallest rooms in the home, but they carry tremendous energetic weight. What you pour into them, scrub them with, and fill them with becomes part of how your home supports or resists your clarity. So clean wisely, clean gently, not as an afterthought, but as a ceremony, not as punishment, but as restoration. And when the space feels clearer, step back and note how your own body shifts in response, how the shoulders drop, how the breath deepens, how the mind softens. That is Feng Shui, not the absence of dirt, but the presence of care, not the war on grime, but the invitation to flow. And it begins not with the tools in your cabinet, but with the intention in your hand. 7. Long-term storage of broken or expired items. There is a quiet weight in every home that most people never see. It doesn't sit on the floor or hang on the walls. It rests in drawers, under sinks, behind mirrored cabinets. Silent, forgotten, persistent. It is the accumulation of what was once useful but is now ignored. The half-used shampoo bottle with just a ring of product left. The cracked razor, dull from time and water. The expired tube of ointment that you can't quite bring yourself to toss, just in case. These items live in our bathrooms longer than we think. They sit there inert and aging, quietly telling the space and the body within it that we are reluctant to release. In Feng Shui, this kind of stagnation is not about clutter in the visual sense. It is about energy that has stopped moving but has not yet been cleared. And when it lingers in a place like the bathroom, a space already ruled by the principle of release, it sends a powerful, if unconscious, message to the rest of the home. I am not ready to let go. Bathrooms, as we've spoken of before, are yin spaces. They are transitional, private, inherently tied to the water element and the concept of downward flow. When used consciously, they support emotional and physical detox. But when we turn them into storage units for decay, they begin to reflect that decay back to us. Every time we open a drawer and see a broken item we haven't repaired, or a bottle we haven't thrown away, a small thread of qi unravels. Not dramatically, not in a way we might name, but subtly. The space begins to feel heavier. The decisions within that room grow slightly more foggy, and over time, the home becomes a map of hesitation rather than clarity. In Feng Shui, every object in your home is either nourishing or depleting. There is no neutral. What sits in your cabinet and serves no purpose, what hides in the back of drawers unused for months, what lives in corners with the promise of someday attached. These are all energetic leaks, not because they take up space physically, but because they anchor indecision. And indecision, in energetic terms, is one of the slowest forms of erosion. It chips away at conviction. It breeds second guessing. It quietly tells the qi of the space that the past has more permission to stay than the future does to arrive. You might think it's just an old razor, a travel-sized shampoo from a trip I haven't repeated, a face cream I used to love once. But energetically, it's something else. It's a version of you that's no longer alive, being given residence in your present. And every time you brush your teeth or reach for a towel, those items remain within your field. The bathroom becomes a storage tank of outdated selfhood. Not maliciously, just habitually. Because humans struggle with endings. We keep what doesn't work, not because we love it, but because we fear the void. But Feng Shui reminds us, space is not emptiness. It is invitation. And only when we empty with care can we invite with clarity. So the invitation here is not to declutter for the sake of cleanliness, but to cleanse for the sake of direction. Choose one drawer, just one. Not the whole cabinet, not the whole room, one single drawer. Open it with attention, not judgment. Look at what lies there. The things you haven't used in 6 months. The bottles that are empty but not discarded. The samples you saved for later that never came. The toothbrushes that have hardened. The mascara that smells off. And ask them, not yourself, ask the items. Do you still serve me? Do you still speak for who I am becoming? You'll know the answer immediately, without needing to think. And that's the truth that this practice reveals, not just about stuff, but about readiness. Feng Shui doesn't teach us to chase beauty. It teaches us to trace energy. And where energy stops moving, attention must enter. Once you've decided, empty the drawer completely. Don't organize within quesos. Remove it all, wipe it clean. Literally and symbolically, a damp cloth, a few drops of lemon oil, a breath exhaled with finality. You don't need to smudge the space with herbs unless you want to. The act of emptying with the presence is its own ritual. And once that space is cleared, fully, you'll feel it. The drawer will hum differently. It will feel as though air moves through it in a new way. Then, and only then, return to it what supports you. Not what's still good, not what you might use, but what actively serves, what brings relief, ease, clarity. If that's just 3 items, let it be 3. Better an underfilled drawer that breathes than a full one that chokes. The deeper lesson here is not about organization. It's about narrative. The things we keep, even when expired, reflect beliefs we rarely examine. That we don't deserve new until we finish the old. That waste is shameful. That resources are scarce. But what Feng Shui offers instead is a reframe. You are not wasting when you release. You are wasting when you hold what no longer nourishes. Because in holding it, you crowd out what might. The razor that cuts poorly but remains. The bottle that smells off but stays. the beauty product that once worked but now causes irritation. These are not utilities. They are echoes. And when we finally thank them and let them go, the room shifts its story. It becomes a space of now, of what is, of readiness. You'll find within days of doing this practice that the bathroom feels easier to be in, that your morning routine gains seconds, that the mirror feels softer. Not because you've made a dramatic change, but because you've made a real one. You've told the space, I am no longer ruled by residue, I am in motion. And motion is what space responds to best. This ritual, though small, becomes a gateway. Many who begin with one drawer find themselves opening others, not just in the bathroom, but in the bedroom, the kitchen, the inbox, the calendar. Because once you feel what release feels like, you want to feel it again. And Feng Shui, at its core, is not about redesigning your home. It's about realigning your energy with the truth of your life. So go to the drawer, find the corners, let the past go gently, not with guilt, but with clarity. And as the space empties, breathe. That breath is the sound of chi returning. That breath is what spaciousness sounds like. That breath is your home, whispering back, now we begin again. Part 2, 3 energy resetting upgrades. In Feng Shui, there is a concept rarely taught in Western design schools, but always felt in the lived experience of space. The room remembers. Every moment spent in it, every shui wine, every routine that becomes unconscious leaves a residue. Not visible, not measurable by a thermometer or camera, but felt nonetheless. A room that has been rushed, avoided, or overloaded doesn't need a remodel. It needs a reset. And few rooms hold the weight of this need more than the bathroom. It's not simply because of its function, but because of what it carries: water, waste, and the constant invitation to let go. To clear this space, to gently remind it of its role in the home's greater ecosystem, is to realign the key not just of the walls, but of the people who pass through them. And perhaps the most quietly powerful tool for this reset begins not with paint or furniture, but with salt. Salt, long before it was a commodity, was a symbol. In traditional homes across cultures, Buddhist temples, Vietnamese kitchens, Italian cottages, salt wasn't only for seasoning. It was for purification, for holding what could not be seen. In Feng Shui, salt absorbs energy that has nowhere to go. But not just any salt, not the kind that's poured passively into the air. The salt must be awakened, and the most effective way to do that is to roast it. A dry pan, 3 to 5 minutes over medium heat, no oil, no water, just salt, transformed by fire. You'll smell it before you see it change. A faint mineral scent, a subtle color shift. That's the salt awakening, its crystalline structure shifting from inert to active, from food to field. Once cooled, it becomes not an ingredient, but a vessel. Place this roasted salt in a small ceramic bowl. Nothing plastic, nothing reflective. Tuck it into the corner of the bathroom where energy tends to pool. Not by the toilet, not near the drain, but in the quiet space that no one walks through. Corners behind doors, beside mirrors, or near the base of cabinetry. Leave it for 7 to 10 days. Let it work. Let it absorb what doesn't belong. And when the time comes, dispose of it mindfully. Not down the sink, it has already absorbed enough. Trash it, thank it, and begin again. There's a story I often return to when I think of this practice. A retired nurse in Texas, years after her final shift, found herself at odds with her family. Not in arguments, but in atmosphere. The conversations at home were short, her sleep was restless. Headaches crept in like quiet visitors. No medical issue, no clear cause, just a lingering tension. She didn't change her diet, she didn't take new supplements. She roasted salt. She placed it in the bathroom, near the corner she never looked at. Within 2 weeks, the headaches eased, the tension softened. The hallway seemed brighter, not because salt is magic, but because energy, once acknowledged, begins to move. And movement is always the beginning of healing. Still, salt alone is not enough. A space cleared must also be recharged, and that is where the plant comes in. A green plant in the bathroom may seem like an aesthetic choice, but in Feng Shui, it is an energetic one. Plants are the only objects in a room that breathe. They do not merely occupy space, they metabolize it. They take in what we exhale. They filter the air, yes, but more than that, they recalibrate the emotional oxygen of a room. They are alive, responsive, adaptive. And in a space where qi tends to fall, where moisture clings, where release is constant, a plant becomes an anchor of upward motion. The best plants for this job are those that require little light, little water, and offer quiet resilience. Pothos, snake plant, ZZ plant, lucky bamboo. Not the delicate orchids or high-maintenance ferns. These four hold a sturdier presence. They are energetically stable. Their leaves are waxy, upright, firm. They don't droop easily. They don't beg for attention. They do their work silently, like monks in a monastery of moisture. Place the plant away from the toilet, not just physically, but symbolically. A plant beside a drain becomes a drain. Instead, let it live near the mirror or in the corner opposite the entry door. Let it be the first thing the eye sees when entering, not the waste, but the growth, the renewal. Let it remind the space we do not only empty here, we also recalibrate. Plants don't need to be spoken to, though you may choose to. What they need is light, occasional water, and the absence of harsh chemicals in the air. If you're using salt or vinegar-based cleaners, the plant will thrive. If you're still spraying with synthetic bleach, it may struggle. And that too is a message from the space. Listen. And then there is the mirror. The mirror is one of the most misunderstood tools in both design and Feng Shui. We use it to check our appearance, to reflect light, to expand small spaces. But in energy work, mirrors do more than reflect. They duplicate, they multiply, they amplify. And in a room that centers on downward energy, that's not always a blessing. The cardinal rule is simple: never let the mirror face the toilet. Not because the toilet is shameful, but because its function is downward, releasing, dispersing. When the mirror faces the toilet, it sends that energy back into the room, doubled, reflected, confused. Qi, instead of flowing outward and resetting, begins to loop. It cannot settle. It cannot transform. It becomes restless. And restlessness in the bathroom often translates to fatigue in the person who uses it. If you must have a mirror, and most people do, let it face light. Let it bounce daylight into corners. Let it reflect the door, the open sky, the upward movement of a plant. A mirror that reflects beauty does not merely show it, it reinforces it. Let it show space, not function. Let it reflect what you want more of, not what you are trying to release. You may not be able to remove the mirror, but you can soften its impact. Place a sheer fabric over the top edge. Hang a small plant nearby. Clean it regularly, not just for smudges, but for clarity. A dusty mirror reflects a dusty mind. In Feng Shui, the mirror is not passive. It is narrative. It repeats what it sees. So choose what you let it repeat. The combination of these three tools, roasted salt, a quiet green plant, and thoughtful mirror placement, may seem simple, but simplicity is the language of lasting change. You don't need to renovate your bathroom. You need to listen to it. And then, in small, grounded ways, respond with a pinch of salt, with a rooted leaf, with a reflection redirected. The bathroom may be where you release, but it is also where you reset. Let it be sacred. Let it be quiet. Let it be well. And in return, it will hold you, not just as you are, but as you are becoming. You don't have to start over. That's the part most people get wrong. You don't have to gut your home, buy expensive upgrades, or spend hours searching for the perfect crystal, mirror, or symbol. You simply have to choose where to begin noticing, really noticing. Because energy, when it feels seen, begins to move. And it doesn't respond to what's flashy or loud. It responds to care, to clarity, to small, thoughtful signals that say, I live here. I'm paying attention now. The bathroom is not where most people begin their transformation journey, but maybe it should be. Because what we flush, what we neglect, what we hide behind doors and under sinks, all of that still speaks. It still participates in the field of energy you live inside every day. When your bathroom is neglected, Your energy slowly learns that it's acceptable to hold on to things you no longer need. That stagnation is normal. That discomfort is part of the deal. But it doesn't have to be. You can change the conversation your home is having with you, starting with the quietest room of all. Think about how many moments begin and end in that space. Think about what it means to walk into a room designed for cleansing and to find it layered with old paper, tired objects, dampness, or fatigue. That's not just an aesthetic problem. It's an energy message, and it reaches further than you think, into your confidence, your clarity, even your capacity to receive. So I'm not here to tell you to fix your whole house. I'm here to suggest something smaller and perhaps more powerful. Choose one object, one corner, one routine. Shift it with full awareness. Replace that damp mat, relocate that tissue box, add a bowl of roasted salt, not because it's trendy, but because it teaches the space how to absorb what words cannot. Let the room know you see it. That's where the energy turns. There's no perfect time to start, no checklist that guarantees results. But if this video gave you a new way to think about your home, if it brought you a moment of clarity, or a reminder that even the most ordinary spaces hold extraordinary influence, then I'm grateful you're here, and I would love to hear what you're changing. Share your story in the comments below. Let this be more than just a video. Let it be a ripple, yours, mine, and those yet to come. And if you'd like to walk with me further, I invite you to subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. This channel is on a quiet path toward 1,000 followers. Your presence, your choice to return here, helps more than you know. It keeps this work alive and allows these teachings to enter more homes that may need a shift, a question, or a beginning. You don't need a bigger space. You need a space that responds to you. And sometimes the most profound form of abundance begins with the decision to clear what no longer belongs and let the rest finally flow.